From the Weather NorCal Command Center, this is your morning update.
You want to go where to buy a new refrigerator? Steve's A to Z Appliance in Cottonwood? In Cottonwood? Just a 10-minute drive. And they'll save us money. New and used, honest, reliable, factory-trained repair service and parts, and they'll save us money. And dispose of this thing? We gotta make the short drive to Steve's A to Z. Thanks, son.
Steve's A to Z Appliance, front and main streets in Cottonwood. Drive a little, save a lot.
Good morning to you. Can you smell it? Can you feel it? We're beginning to get that warmer air moving in. It's starting to feel a little bit more like spring out there. And it will be drier and warmer today. And it's going to start today, but it's not going to be super hot. Let's just put it that way, right? But temperatures will be noticeably a little bit warmer out there. Winds are picking up as well, starting today, but we'll really start to feel it by Thursday and into Friday. Now highs, especially by this weekend, getting close to 80 degrees. And I do expect cooler weather for parts of next week, but not as cool as initially thought. We'll get into that in the deep dive forecast here in a bit, but let's take a look at your planner for today. So again, yes, it's warming up, but it's not going to be hot out there. Temperatures low to maybe some mid-60s later this afternoon in the valley. Siskiyou, Modoc County, still coolish, really. Temperatures mainly in the 40s there, not to mention the eastern mountains. But of course, there may be some patchy, dense fog in some areas of the inland and low-lying areas of the mountain valleys as well. So places like inland and not to mention even around Trinity County as well. But temperatures, again, they're starting to warm up even for the higher elevations. You'll notice it pretty much anywhere you go. High pressure is a dominant feature. The flow around that high pressure will still bring in some clouds today, especially to the north, say Del Norte, Siskiyou, Modoc counties. To the south of that, though, probably some passing high clouds throughout the day. Let's take a look at Futurecast. I want to show you the wind along with the clouds, because again, the clouds really for today, noon, just up to the north. See the areas of white? That's what we really want to focus on with the clouds. That's what you're seeing here, mainly to the north. We're not seeing much in the way of clouds to the south. But notice here in the valley, you see this right here, the winds are beginning to funnel down, even parts of this morning, into parts of the valley. So it will be a little breezy for some of us this morning, and in particular by noon. Now the winds may relax a little bit when we start to see it transition with those winds. See how we're seeing them more coming out more like this, right? They're coming in from the northeast and then down funneling in the valley. Also notice we're beginning to see more in the way of winds east of the valley. But also we're seeing the winds not quite as strong for the southeast portion of the valley, say around Chico and Oroville. That's tomorrow that we're looking at, but still north and west side of the valley, still seeing some gusty winds. But look at the coast, not that bad, and pretty breezy even for the eastern mountains. Okay, now we're going to take you into Friday. Look what's starting to happen here. We're beginning to really see those winds ramp up here. So yeah, I think even for Friday morning, some very strong winds. North, west side of the valley, see, not as bad for Chico, but look at that off in the foothills, very strong winds. But look at the coast, again, not that bad. Maybe a little breezy, windy out in some parts of Trinity County, and not to mention the east. That's Friday. So you get the idea. The winds will be off and on. Some people, some of us in Northern California will see the winds worse than others. Others, you'll be like, well, where are those winds he was talking about? Well, it won't be over you, but it'll be over someone else. All right, here's your Trinity County neighborhood forecast. Temperatures upper 50s, maybe some 60-degree readings in there. Mid-50s on average for the north coast. Look at those warmer temperatures and drier conditions in the long range as well. 59 for Smith River, 56 for Trinidad, Hoopa, Orleans, and Willow Creek, topping at around 59 degrees. Your Siskiyou County neighborhood forecast. Those temperatures, upper 40s to low 50s for your daytime highs. Dry conditions at least through early next week. Modoc County, there you can see about 46 for Tule Lake, 40 in Fort Bidwell, 42 degrees for Alturas, and Aden, about 41. Here's your Eastern Mountains neighborhood forecast, 55 for Shingletown, 58 in Paradise, and there's Portola with a high of 46 degrees. All right, here's your Valley neighborhood forecast. Those temperatures are going to be in the low to mid 60s. Again, a little bit warmer than it has been. It's not going to be a major jump in the temperatures for today, but it will be noticeably warmer out there. 59 degrees out in Whiskeytown, 64 for Palo Cedro, and 60 out in Lakehead. Let's take a look at that 7-day outlook, and there, of course, see the windy conditions here, off and on, breezy, borderline windy today, tomorrow, Friday, but the winds died down over the weekend. In fact, we have a gorgeous weekend setting itself up here. Upper 70s by your St. Patrick's Day, mid to upper 70s for Monday, and yes, next Tuesday is the first day of spring. Although it's going to feel a little bit more like spring before that here as we get to the end of the week. That's a look at your forecast here. If you're heading out the door with the kiddos, maybe heading off to school or whatnot, have yourselves a great day. Stick around now for a more deep dive forecast. One of the things I want to start with is the rain totals the last 3 days. And now the reason I'm showing this is because, number one, it's good to see this, right? Especially as we're going into a drying trend here over the next several days. But one of the things I highlighted last week was that we've got this drier weather coming in we're starting to see now. But before that, we were going to see a good stretch of some decent rain for many parts, not everybody, but for many parts of Northern California. And you know what? The long-range forecast models did a pretty good job with those projections. We did see about a half an inch to even upwards of an inch and a half for parts of the valley. So this is good to see. Again, we're looking at the last 3 days. Obviously not as much. I mean, look at that, only 100th out in Susanville, only 600ths in El Terrace. But look at the coast. I mean, over 2 inches in Crescent City, Redway 1.71, Ruth, an inch and almost 3/4, a little over 3/4 in Weberville, Trinity Center, about an inch. So this is good to see. And especially when we start getting this drier weather, we can, maybe enjoy the drier weather for a little bit longer, all right? So let's take a look at the pattern that's setting itself up. Showed you this a little bit earlier, but you can see this big arc in the clouds. That's the ridge of high pressure. It's building. It's getting stronger. The area of high pressure is down to the south. That's where we have the clear skies. But we still have that flow around that high, and that's going to bring us some of those clouds I was mentioning earlier. So let's show you the whole setup here. So here's high pressure. There's low pressure to our west, low pressure to our east. Now, right now, as I mentioned, the flow around that high pressure, and not to mention on the backside of that low pressure, we are seeing the clouds moving in. But also, this is the upper level support that we start to see with the winds. So the winds are starting to ramp up today. But as I mentioned, as high pressure really starts to build and get stronger, I think the winds will amplify as we go into Thursday. Now, this is kind of that classic setup. You've got high pressure here, low pressure here. The difference between the two is really allowing those winds to especially funnel down into the valley, but even the eastern mountains seeing some of those gusty winds as well. This is Thursday, by the way. So you can see really that classic setup. See, these lines are called isobars. The closer they are together, tightly packed, we really begin to see those winds pick up. Now, in the meantime, this is something I talked about yesterday. This is what we call an omega block or a ridge, right? So here you can see right here the jet stream. Look what that shape is. That shape is the Greek letter omega. All right, so there you can see, of course, the area of low pressure to our west, low pressure to our east. And by the way, can't forget about the fact that it's getting warmer going into Thursday and Friday. Now that ridge kind of builds even more to the north, but we're seeing this pattern begin to break down because this low pressure system, as it butts up against that wall and that ridge of high pressure, that low pressure here, the energy is being forced and pushed up to the north. So we still have that flow around the area of high pressure and that flow around the low pressure. However, a couple of things to notice. Number two, those lines, they're beginning to spread apart just a little bit, which means the winds will relax a little bit. And we're seeing those tighter isobars a little bit more to the south. So I think the winds will be a bit stronger towards the Bay Area, Sacramento, right? They'll be a little bit stronger there on Friday. Now, as I mentioned, as this area of low pressure kind of rides up over the ridge, it starts to kind of push it and break it down a little bit because we've got more energy coming in from the west. So what's going to happen is, and this is that perfect setup that I was talking about here for the weekend, because high pressure will be in place. We no longer have the winds to talk about over the weekend, but the warmer air is in place. So temperature is getting close to, if not right around 80 for some of us in the valley. This low pressure is still kind of hanging out over the desert southwest. Then this high pressure starts to kind of break down and push down to the south. So the warmer air is still in place even on Tuesday, but we're beginning to see these storm systems. You can see this trough right here. That's a storm. You can see another trough right here. That's another storm. So what these storms are doing as they're coming in from the Pacific is they're riding over and breaking that ridge apart. And as a result, our temperatures start to drop. But these storm systems fairly moisture start. I mean, look at this one. Yeah, it's bringing us a slight chance on Tuesday, but at this point, I'm not really even putting it in the forecast. Then we go into Wednesday, a little bit stronger, maybe some showers, but even Thursday, this system coming in from the west, that may eventually impact us. But you can kind of see, we saw that nice big amplified ridge, and then that ridge begins to break down as these storm systems kind of ride over it. So yes, we're warming things up, but it's not going to be this prolonged period of this above average temperatures. We're going to kind of cool things off a little bit here as these storm systems come in. All right, let's take a closer look at those winds here over time. So we're going to take into the noon hour, and what we're seeing here is those winds. Remember I was talking about funneling down the valley. The winds kind of come in, and then they funnel down. You know, you think about, you know, when you're in the city, if you go to a big city, a lot of times what happens is you have all those buildings so close together. So the winds come through, and it forces them to all come together and really funnel through those buildings, and you see gusty winds within the city, but maybe it's not as bad just outside of the city, right? So that's kind of the same concept. It's coming and filtering down into the valley, and those winds come together and it filters, and we begin to see those stronger winds as a result. Because look at around the valley. I mean, the winds are not that strong, but in the valley they are. Again, it's coming down that valley. So you can see here, especially for Red Bluff, Willows, kind of west, I-5 westward, but the wind's also a little bit strong out in Chico as well. So they're all, I think everyone in the valley will at times see some gusty winds, but they're not strongest yet. All right, now we're going to take you into about 5 p.m. So we're seeing it kind of shift a little bit more to the east side and south end of the valley. We're seeing the strongest winds. But look at the coast. A little breezy, right? 15 miles per hour. A little breezy off in the eastern mountains, but again, not that bad. Now we're going to take you into tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Now we're starting to see those winds really amplify off into the foothills. All right, so places like Paradise, Magalia, we start getting into some of those mountains like, you know, Shingletown, and there's, of course, Lassen Park, right? We're starting to see those stronger winds begin to pick up. But the valley, the winds are also picking up, but especially the north and now west side of the valley. Look at Redding, look at Red Bluff, look at Willows, around 20 miles per hour, but only 5 miles per hour in Chico. We're just not seeing the winds quite as strong on the east side of the valley. And it looks like even parts of southern Trinity County seeing some gusty winds. But look at the coast, not that bad. Now we're going to take you into Thursday around noon, still those gusty winds, the foothills, the valley, southern Trinity County, even the eastern mountains seeing some strong winds, but not that bad for the coast. Thursday afternoon, still pretty gusty at times here for the northwest side of the valley. Eastern mountains seeing some gusty winds at times too, but look at off to the west. Again, not that bad, right? Now we take you into Friday, and now the winds are really starting to kind of pick up. This is Thursday night into Friday morning. Stronger winds in the valley. Look at these strong winds for the foothills, but look at Chico again, about 10 miles per hour, double that out towards Redding, Red Bluff, and Willows. Eastern mountains, some pretty strong winds. And remember, we saw this setup on Friday with that jet stream kind of doing something like this, right? And that's exactly what we're seeing happen here. We got the area of high pressure to our north and west, area of low pressure here. That's kind of funneling down like this. And that's exactly the pattern that we're seeing here at the surface. The wind's not as strong, though, once again, for the coast. So you get the idea. The winds are picking up. And we do have some advisories and high wind warnings out there, which those are all going to just change and morph over time. But wind, you know it's going to be windy out there, so just be prepared for that. Above normal temperatures are still expected in the long range, but look at this. We were well within the below normal category, but the Climate Prediction Center is now putting this more within that near normal category. So that pattern shift that I was showing you from the ridge of high pressure to these storm systems riding over that ridge, that pattern may eventually give us a better chance for some showers here toward the end of the month. We'll see. I mean, it's not guaranteed, but certainly something to kind of look into. And this is something I was talking about. I didn't see this heat wave, if you will, to last forever, and it's not happening. So there you can see, of course, we're looking at those wave heights, and it looks like they are going to start to drop a bit as we take you into your Thursday. So let's take a look at your marine forecast. There you can see north winds at 10 to 20 knots, waves from the northwest at 15 feet at about 14 seconds. Small craft advisory here for today. All right, so here's what it looks like today. It's kind of a broad perspective. Yeah, a little bit warmer than it has been. We'll call for low to even some mid-60s today for the valley, right? But for the mountains, we're talking mid to upper 40s on average. Upper 50s Trinity County, mid to upper 50s for the north coast. So your 7-day outlook for the 6 neighborhoods, right? We got the valley here. What we're looking at here are basically breezy, windy conditions the next few days. There are those temperatures nearing 80. Now for now, I haven't put 80 in the forecast because I'm just not seeing it in the long range, but it's not out of the question. Not out of the question at all. Here's your coast, inland and out towards Weaverville. Of course, we're just looking at those temperatures increasing, staying dry here for the next 7 days. There's your 7-day outlook for Mount Shasta, Alturas, Susanville. Sunny skies, temperatures warmer, especially by the second half of the weekend and early next week.